I wanted to say aloha again. I'm Malia Nobriga Oliveira, and I'm connecting as usual from my Onehanau from Hanapepe, Kauai, and just really happy on behalf of Hawaiinuia Kea, the School of Hawaiian Knowledge, to be a Leo Kako'o, Leo Alakai here on Lei Ānuenue, and to come into your hale and to be here with your ohana. Some of you may be haumana, some may be kupuna, some may be a few of you, you're gathering around as a ohana, and we love having all of you. I'm looking back at my Facebook feed here, and I can see people are joining us also from Utah, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Hawaii, England, Oahu, and all kinds of places. So again, aloha no. So I'm gonna turn it over to, these two young wahine. I've actually known them for, I can't say from birth, but from their younger years for sure. And I feel like I've known them all their life and seen them grow up into these beautiful young leaders and wahine that are doing such great things in our community and for our lahui. And so I'm just so blessed to be with them today and to have them come and join me. Sometimes you put out a kahea and then they go, okay, yes, anake, mahalo. So I'm gonna ask to unmute them now and ask them to hold on themselves. Aloha.
Aloha kako. My name is Oaokaena Kirkland. I come from Nanakuli, Oahu. I'm a graduate from Kekula Kaiapuni o Ānuenue, and been blessed to be able to be raised in the language, in hula, Pāʻū as well, and many other aspects of our culture.
Aloha nui kako o keia o Kaʻanoʻi Akaka. I was born and raised in Kaneʻohe. That's my Onehanau, my Aina Hanau, and that's where our roots are. But I was also raised in Moʻiliʻili, and now I live in Kaimuki. So I'm a townie now, but our roots are on the Ko'olau side, on the windward side of our island. I graduated from Kamehameha schools, but Kaena and I grew up together in hula and in Olelo and in Kaiapuni too as well. And mahalo for the introduction, Anake, because it's true. I mean, I really do feel like you've been there from birth.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, and we've learned so much from you from Keiki all the way till now, and we're so blessed and so grateful that you invited us to be here today. Mahalo nui.
Yeah, I want to give a big aloha out to all of your makua as well that I love and I can call my friends as well. And, all of your makua are also amazing leaders and mentors to so many young people too, whether it be like I see both of you, leaders in our communities, as educators, as hula people, kumu hula. I think there's so many ways that we're all connected, even in Olelo and Kaiapuni. And so, yeah, I'm really blessed to have you guys join. And, just to share with everyone else, last week, as we all know, was Kamehameha Day. And I started seeing all these posts, like all these Wahine Hololio were posting all these beautiful pictures, and luckily a lot of them are my friends. So I got to see it and I was like, that would be a really cool show to have and to learn more about Pāʻū writing and why it's such a big part of our mo'olelo of Hawaii. Because like I was sharing with you guys as we were prepping for the show, I've been in conversations with some of my friends are like, why you go to a parade and what's so important about a parade and doing it in Waikiki, things like that. And I was like, I think it is a big part of our mo'olelo, because there's a chunk of our history that really, we learned so much from that part, and my little mo'olelo back to you guys was about the carnation lei I wore, a few weeks ago, and how for myself, I didn't really have a big mahalo for carnation leis when my auntie said Waikiki Hawaiian Civic Club was gonna have started our club and used the carnation lei as as our flower. And I was like, oh, auntie, like, can we have like a Hawaiian flower, you know? And she's like, baby, there's a part, you know, we got started in the 60s, and Waikiki and our history for hula at that time really honored the carnation lei, and everybody was wearing those, the whites with the red carnation lei or the pink ones. And I said, oh, okay, auntie. I love carnation leis now. So, you know, I think similarly, as we learn our mo'olelo, then, you know, we get to mahalo these parts of our history. So I'm excited to learn more.
Mahalo. Mahalo. So shall we share screen and we can jump
Sure. Yeah, let's get started.
No. Okay, can you see our slides?
Yes.
Okay,
Beautiful.
mahalo. Mahalo. Yes, so we're so humbled and so grateful that you asked us.
Yeah.
And I think when we talked story about what we would be sharing today, we decided, you know, from our point of view and our standpoint, we want to share today is as the newer generation of Pāʻū riders, because we're so humbled and so blessed that we were taught certain things from the older generations. Yeah. And so in different aspects of our culture, as we know, in most aspects of our culture, there are things that need to be passed down. And so we're grateful that as the younger generation, yes, we are makua, but we're kind of on the younger side of those who ride Pāʻū. So, you know, we've been blessed to be taught certain things and different aspects of Pāʻū riding, you know, and the lei, the clothing, doing the hair and the makeup, but also like equestrian stuff, right? Different tips and tricks, because we weren't horse riders before we started Pāʻū. And we'll get a little bit more into that, but that's our point of view today, is our personal experiences as the next generation of Pāʻū, and how grateful we are that we are now learning it, and hopefully we can pass it on eventually as well.
Okay, so back in 2012, I was approached by Auntie Beverly Lee about riding. She knew as a child I wanted to be a Pāʻū rider. I used to go and actually watch her in the parades, and she knew I always wanted to be a Pāʻū rider. So back in 2012, the parade wasn't as strong as it is now. A few years prior, the parade didn't have all islands represented. So there was maybe 6, 5, or 7. So finally in 2011, 2012, they finally had every island represented. And just so happened, 2012, they needed another princess. And prior to us riding, you had to apply to be a princess, or before you would actually apply, and they would choose if you were gonna ride, and they chose your unit. So you had to go to the ranch and show them how you rode and your abilities and try out. And then from there, they would tell you, okay, you will be princess, and then this is gonna be who's in your unit. These are your attendants, this is your page, and this is your escort. So when we started to ride, I was the youngest princess back then. I was just turning 21. Didn't know anything about the behind the scenes. I just knew they looked beautiful. They rode the horses, and it was just something that was like the favorite part of the parade that I always look forward to. So when I decided to go ahead and ride, the first people I asked was Kaʻanoʻi and Kamaka. And we've grown up together for years. And from there, everything kind of fell into place. We were actually everybody in our hui was basically the youngest. Just Anakala Kalani was the oldest in our unit, but everybody was either Olelo Hawaii. They practiced some type of culture, either lei makers, Peleke, who's in the far right of this photo. He's from Kauai, and he's Kanaka Mahi'ai. Kimo on the far side, he's from Molokai, and he grew up on the land. And then in this ki'i, so we have Uncle Kalani. He's also a lei maker. And then Kamaka, No'i, Leo, and I were all hula dancers, and we all Olelo Hawaii. So it was one thing to be the youngest, but it was also to be a hui that could olelo and not only practice culture in Pāʻū, but in our lives. Yeah. So over the years, we've been blessed with so many people who has mentored us, taught us, been there from day one. And you can see over the years through these pictures, the change in our leis, the change in us in general. So the first year we rode, Auntie Beverly Lee came in. She helped me to basically kind of shape on how we were gonna do things. We had Auntie Aukeles Yanko, who also helped. She was one of the first people that actually helped me put the unit together. And then over the years, we were able to learn from Uncle Ava, past queens, Pāʻū queens like Auntie Monica, Auntie Luca. And then we had beautiful lei makers that came out. We had kumhula like Auntie Twyla Mendez. We had our first year, Uncle Kimo actually came to majority of our practices and taught us how to be presentable. And for me, you never realize how much the princess has to work on the horse. I thought I was just gonna be able to ride down the road and be okay. But little did I know I had to weave. And he told me when I was coming, he was like, you come into Waikiki right by Hawaii Prince. When you look up, there's people up in the top. You have to acknowledge them as well, not just the people on the bottom. You acknowledge everyone because everyone's there to support and to kako'o and just to acknowledge what's going on here in Hawaii. So we've been able to have been blessed with so many of them. Every year, for the first 3 years, Uncle Pita, he did our hair. We had Hoku do our makeup. And then we had the year Moloka'i. That's actually my favorite year for our hair. So we had Uncle Eric Pa'i who did our hair and he put it into a shape of a hat. And we were just talking last night that we remember when we walked in. So we used to mount at Central Middle School, sorry. And we just so happened, we rode on the party bus with another unit. And as we got off the bus, like everybody, the whole place turned and looked at us. And all we heard was, are they wearing hats? What are they doing? Who is that? So it was like the talk of the town. And it's to this day, we always get compliments like, hey, you guys are the ones that had hats, yeah? I was like, yeah, but that's actually our hair. We couldn't wear papale. And then after that, we had ho'o. Ivalani ho'o manavanui apo helped us our year of Maui. My Hanai sister Aliana ended up doing our makeup that year. And then the last year that I rode was Lanai, and Kehau Tamure helped us with our hair, leis. And every year was just beautiful.
So you see that obviously there's so much kako'o, right? We're the visual representation coming down the road, coming down the highway or the avenue, but we're backed by everybody. You know, our ohana, our hoa, our kumu, all these mentors and all these anake and anakala that have taught us and mentored us and really just selflessly gave of their time and talents to support us because we're so young and pretty much clueless.
Yeah, we were very young and we were like, okay, how do we make a bundle? And how does this happen? And why do we need wax string? And what is all the wires for?
Brand new. Yeah, so that's something that we look back on. And I always think about the parade route, because there's all this prep, which we'll go more into, all this ho'omakaukau for months leading up to the parade. And on the parade day, there's just so many emotions. You jump on a horse and there's no feeling like...
I don't think you can really explain it. I think it's just like when you are a hula dancer and you get on that stage and there's no real words to explain it.
Yeah, you really, you have to look pretty, right? Visually and aesthetically, you got to look nice. Yeah, but the feeling that you get from senior ohana, senior family, and malihini as even, even malihini, people you don't know, in the crowds as you're going down the avenue, going down the roadway, just brings so much pride, and so much humility too. I think we're so grateful that we're able to then be the vessels to carry this hana, this practice down the road.
That's so great. I was thinking earlier when you guys talked about Uncle Kimo coming to work with you guys and train you guys and how to present yourself. I mean, he's the perfect person to do that, I feel. And it reminded me of one of our holoku classes where, you know, I mean, you think dancing hula with a holoku is pretty easy, and you don't really realize what it takes to do that, you know. So we had to even practice, bring in our beach towels and attach that to our pa'ū skirts, and, you know, learn how to stand, learn how to turn, learn how to pick it up. And that's kind of the memory that, and the hali'a aloha that came into mind, that I can relate and see Uncle Kimo being there with you guys, and, you know, telling you how to acknowledge everyone. So that's great.
Yes, almost exactly the same. Yeah, that makes so much sense. So as you were saying, right, many people don't actually know mo'olelo about Pāʻū or where it stemmed from. And some parts, you know, here and there in the mo'olelo and in the history, you might be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I actually knew that. And some things might be brand new. So we just wanted to share some very basic history, a basic overview of how horses got here to Hawaii, and when Pāʻū kind of started. And so it was in the early 1800s when horses first came here to Hawaii, brought up aboard a ship, and they were actually meant to be makana for Kamehameha Ekahi, for Kamehameha Pai'ea. And then over time, and this is the early 1800s, and so over the next few decades, you see more and more horses coming here to Hawaii from west coast of the continental US, so from California and that area. And so like everything else, right, our kupuna adapt. Yeah, they adapt and they take on the things that they know will help them. Our kupuna were geniuses. They're ingenious, and they took on things that you would make their lives easier, work smarter, not harder necessarily. And so naturally they took on riding horses in different ways, of course, for its functional use of a mode of transportation to travel, right, from point A to point B. And then later we see it becoming more of an entertainment and recreation type of thing as well. And then we also think about ali'i, right? So if we think about the monarchy period, automatically I think about Emalani, because we hear so many mele and mo'olelo of her as an equestrian. And so these photos are from the Hawaii State Archives. They have beautiful, beautiful photos in general, but Pāʻū pictures, just so beautiful. And these are some of the earliest photos we were able to find from the 1880s. And so on the right, you see Wahine Hololio, and you see their version of Pāʻū. So at that time, right, they're using what they had at that moment. And so they're using anywhere from 12 to 20 yards of fabric for their Pāʻū. Lots of calico prints, gingham, those kinds of things, whatever they had, right? We ride in Kamehameha Day Parade, which is satin, right? We use satin, we use velvets.
And solid colors
too. And solid colors. Yeah, and when you look back at these pictures, you see some solid colors, but then you also see prints and those kinds of things, because that's what was available, right? So they're resourceful with whatever they had. So going back to the recreational side, so below, right, many of us know that Kapi'olani Park was a polo field, right, an area for horseback racing. And so Wahine and Kane'a, like, both practice horseback riding and racing. And Kapi'olani was just one of those areas, but that's probably the most famous and probably the most expansive, the biggest too, where they could practice those kinds of things. And then they, as I said, slowly started to get into parades and riding for Pāʻū. So we don't really know exactly where in the 1800s, right? But this is starting up in the 1800s, maybe mid to late. And where the Pāʻū starts to come from, and you looking at these various pictures, you see slightly different styles. But the Pāʻū itself, right, as we talk about adaptation and how they took something traditional and kind of made it a little bit more modern and moved on with the times, right, with more of the Western contact and Western influences. Our wahine start to wear holoku and holomu'u and those kinds of things. So the function with the Pāʻū is that they actually used it as dust covers. And so the Pāʻū, they then wrapped it around. We'll talk about wrapping a little bit, but it was then a cover for their holoku or their holomu'u when they were traveling, right? Where they're on their way to a pa'ina, they got to jump on the horse, right? But to, so much dust and lepo, because of the way of the nature of the roadways back then, the Pāʻū served that purpose, right? So it had a function of protecting their clothing. And so we see that some, like we said, there are different styles, and Uncle Kimo really is the expert in this. Hokivo could probably do what, a month-long Lei Ānuenue series on Pāʻū.
Right.
Right? We know he's a wealth of knowledge in so
Yeah.
many areas, and so a lot of this Ike he has shared with us. He's told us wonderful mo'olelo. And he really could. He could do like a month-long.
He could.
Lei
He
Ānuenue
would do a few a day.
on Pāʻū. But he talks about the different styles, right? And so there are variations across islands. Yeah, islands across the Pai'aina. Certain islands have certain styles. Some, like the back, your Elemu area, yeah, some will close up the Pāʻū so you don't see any undergarments or anything like that, and some might not in traditional times. So we see different styles. But basically they were wrapped and covered all the way or flowed over the stirrups. Yeah, so you can't even really see your boots. There are some photos where you see the wahine's feet in the stirrups with the Pāʻū over it as well. But these other ones, the Pāʻū kind of just cascades over and you're like, oh, where's their feet?
Yeah.
You know, it's so gracious. Like you don't see certain things. And naturally too, I think Pāʻū had this kind of this history of being for more of the elite. Yeah, more of the maybe higher class, the ali'i, of course, for horseback riders and whatnot, and practice these things. And when you think of like polo, you know, polo and horse racing, you might think of like more of a higher class kind of people.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that when you see Pāʻū riders, right, they have a very distinct, very regal, very classy way of sitting and whatnot. And that's something that we're taught too when we
are.
Sit up, you know.
Sit up straight.
Yeah, sit up straight, arch your back. and so all these cool little tricks and things that we learned that come from history, right, come from mo'olelo, and kind of move over, and you know, things just make sense. And I think it's wonderful how we're traditional parts of our culture, from lole and whatnot, are kept, and then interwoven with modern things and modern influences. So this is pretty interesting. This is a photo that we found in Kanupepa Ku'oko'a. The picture on the left was found on an issue on February 9th in 1906. And it kind of just shows a side-by-side, a quick way of a step-by-step kind of idea of wrapping, right? So I don't know if you can see at the bottom, right? Ke komo pa'u ana, and then ka ho'oponopono ana, ane paupono, makaukau no ke kau ana. Yeah, so a lot of people will see the finished product, right? When you're sitting on the lio and how the pa'u flows, you know, down from your kino and flows over the stirrups and the lio. But it's interesting to see too what it looks like when you're standing up. Yeah. And so this is kind of cool, right? And for us, we had maybe 9 to 12 yards when we rode. Yep. And it's pretty heavy. You know, you're holding the satin as you walk from where you got wrapped to your lio.
And you're hoping that it doesn't fall and you don't step on it, and you hold it the right way so that when you get on the horse, it's pa'a, it's maikai.
And so to think that some of them even had up to 20 yards, right? Yeah, and they're holding it as
kind of heavy.
Yeah. And so again, we see different styles. You see kind of the apron, which is the portion that's right below the kikala in the front. You can see to the progression from where there's no apron to the apron in the third picture. And then maybe you can talk about kipola and stuff as well.
Is it one continuous piece, or is that what you're gonna share now?
Yeah, so it's actually one continuous piece. So if you look at the bottom picture, that is myself back in 2012, the first year we rode. So there's actually a piece of, it's like a 1.5 inch type of cordage that is sewn onto the material that they use to tie around. And when they do that, basically they tell you, okay, suck it in, hold your breath, and they'll tie as tight as possible. And then when you exhale, you can feel that part. So what they do is they pull the material through your legs. And so a lot of people don't know that when they actually are tying the pa'ū, they're using kukui nuts. So I have some of my kukui nuts from when we rode. Normally when I hemo my pa'ū at the end of the parade, I always lose my kukui nuts. So normally it's 6 of these, 6 kukui nuts, and know if they're the ones to use is what you do is you put it in a bucket of vai. And the ones that float aren't mai kaʻi because there's already a crack in it, a puka or something. So when they are to use it to tie, it's most likely to break. So you want to use the kukui.
Sorry, I'm going to stop your sharing real quick. So some people, I don't know, because we have people from all over tuning in, but can you show the kukui nut again? Maybe some people have never seen it.
So this is the kukui nut. It comes in different colors.
And this is in its raw state.
Yeah, this is
not really how you pick it up off the ground. You have to do a little bit more work of removing the outer skin and whatnot. But it's not the straight from the kukui nut lei that many know. It's not like we take apart a lei and pull it off. It's not varnished or anything like that.
There's everything on it. There's no sanding. You need all the ridges you can get. And it's basically because what they do is they take the kukui nut, and I can show you really quickly. So what they do is they take, as if this is a material that they would use to wrap. So the kukui nut would go inside like this. And then what they would do is they twist it like that. And then they tuck it into that piece where they tie it around your waist. And that's what makes it pa'a. So they use 6 kukui nut, and it's used in different areas. There's 3 in the front, 2 in the front, 2 on the sides, and 2 on the back. And so how No'i was saying earlier, sometimes people, they go ahead and the back, how they do it is they either crisscross over so that you, it also pulls the material and makes it a little bit more tighter and fitted. And that way when you sit, it sits nicely and it covers and it flows a certain way. Some of them, they just put it to where if this is your back, they put the kukui here and here on the sides. So that is one of the major things that people don't know about Pāʻū. Some, they might just think, oh, it's going to get pinned over there, or they're just going to tie it. But before, they used to actually use ili to, instead of kukui nut. They used to use ili, and that's what they would use to help tie their Pāʻū. And there's a few different styles that I've heard of, different ways they actually do the Pāʻū. Some do the pouch, how we've seen in the pictures earlier. Some don't do that. And a lot of it is preference and depending on who your kumu is, yeah. So
Shannon is asking on Facebook, how interesting. Does that hurt to wear them? I guess with the tying and putting the kukui nuts.
Yes.
if you kind of breathe.
If you kind of breathe, and then you have an extra nut coming in and holding it in.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because they did it properly.
That means they did it correct. If you can breathe and it's not sore, then they should do it again.
And so yes, we often come off of the route, the parade route, and when the Pāʻū is removed, we often have bruises and welts and those kinds of things. But that shows aloha, because if our rappers didn't have aloha for us, they wouldn't tie it so tight, and the thing might fall off while we're on the road. But if it's tight and you have welts, mai kaʻi.
Then you're mai kaʻi. I know we've had times where when you get onto the horse after you waka and you're wrapped, you're still holding your material getting onto the horse. So when you put your foot into the stirrup, so you have the material over your arm, your foot is in the stirrup, you're holding onto the pommel, and then when you go over, when you pull yourself up to go over, you're still holding the rest of the material in your other hand, and you're pulling your leg over. And sometimes it depends on how you sit or whatever may happen, you can lose a nut. Your kukui nut can go flying or shift, and then that's when you have your men or even Uncle Kimo comes out actually, and he'll check. And if you need to be rewrapped or adjusted or whatever it may be, he'll come and check on you.
So Uncle Kimo did workshops with us, and that's one part, but a major part of kind of our beginnings. So there were all these workshops held in the very beginning because so many of us were new.
Yes.
And Uncle showed us those things, and then he trained a whole team, right? And so we're so grateful for them because they really looked out for us and really shared a lot with us.
Good thing was that if at any time we needed to be rewrapped or anything, our men were able to learn from Uncle Kimo, just in case that something was to happen, they were able to do it.
So these are our escorts, the kane in our unit. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, you can show that. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, for us, our escorts, the princesses prepare a eke. So basically, this is like emergency bag on the route. And so normally what you have in there is you have a few extra kukui. You have that on you. Safety pins, because you never know what you're gonna need. A few times I throw in bobby pins. We had the second year we rode for Kauai, and we were coming down Punch Bowl, and I just so happened. So the princess normally will weave around, and sometimes I'll turn around just to see where my unit is and how they're doing, and come back. And just so happened I seen my escort coming up from the back, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on. Little did I know that there was a hairpiece that was falling out of one of our girls, their lauoho. So he came, he grabbed some bobby pins out of his eke, and he just went right in and pinned it, and she was my ka'i for the rest of the raid.
Yep.
So that's why these are very important.
Yeah, yeah.
And so are our kane.
And so our kane are very important. Sometimes they put string in theirs, like they put a piece of kaula for if they gotta retie the lei. Because that is one thing too, yeah, when you're on the horse and after you get situated, the lei can shift, just like when we wear lei, yeah. Sometimes you have to retie it, you have to adjust it or whatever. So we normally have those things. It's our little emergency kit. Some people have first aid kits. We have emergency Pāʻū kits.
Yes, yes. Awesome. So maybe we bring back the slides, because I remember seeing some of those pictures. And then I'm seeing some comments here, like Kaolana says, make sure you go bathroom first before being wrapped.
Yes. Oh yeah. Because once you are wrapped, there's no going back. You have to wait till you get off the horse at Kapi'olani Park.
This is hours later.
This
right?
is hours
and hours later.
When we were riding, we were always wrapped at Central, and then we had to be mounted no later than 7:15. And so basically, a lot of the people were starting to get wrapped about 6:15, 6:30. So if you were wrapped first, that means you had to wait the longest to use the lua. And then basically, from there, you get onto your horse, and then we would ride from Central over to Iolani Palace. And we had to be on the horses by a certain time because they had to close the road for us from Central over to Iolani Palace. And then as time passed, actually in 2018, they started to mount at Iolani Palace.
Oh.
Yeah, so being that they were there, they don't have to mount as early. So I always tell them, hey, you guys lucky. You guys had a little bit extra time than us, but it's still beautiful, the being able to get on that horse and then move out, and just that small little trot area, because believe it or not, there's people out there watching from the area because they know that's where we mount from. And normally it's a lot of our ohana, but there's all kinds of people that show up just from Central to Iolani.
And the view as well in Central Intermediate, I'm just thinking back to when we actually mount, you have about 100 horses right in front of Central Middle School, which is a nice sized field, but not massive. No, it's not that big. And so you have 100 horses, and then just think about 8 units of 7 people each. And then you have marshals and the Queen's unit and the private mount. It's such a beautiful sight. And for us to, and then, you exit the school grounds and to go together, and then you're at Iolani Palace, and to be on the grounds at the palace, all duked out. It's one of the most beautiful sights.
Yeah. So when we would go to Iolani Palace, we would actually be on the barracks side. Okay. So behind the barracks, we would be on that area, and then they would tell us when we were ready to go, and then we'll come out from the side of it, and then come out towards King Street. Now they mount between the barracks in the gazebo area, and then just from there they come right out and they enter onto the roadways. So one of the biggest things that comes with Pāʻū is practice and early morning rides. We drove to Kahuku for many years. Every morning we rode at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would stay on for about an hour And then a lot of times we would go to someone's hale and we would work on trying to create our bundles, figuring out what we're gonna do for our leis, have our meetings and everything. So there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people didn't realize. In the picture on the top left, you see Uncle Kimo is there. So that was what our last practice before we rode out for the first year we rode in 2012. And then Auntie Bev is there, and also Auntie Okele. So actually, Auntie Bev and Auntie Okele were the foundation for me when I started to ride Pāʻū. And then we have our unit photo on the bottom at practice. So a lot of the practices was for formation. So there was, so there's a page that goes first, and then between the page and the princess is about 15 feet. Then between the princess and her 3 attendants, who are her 3 wahine, between that is about 15 to 20 feet. And then between them, you'll see like on the turns, it's gonna be a little bit closer because they have to make sure that they move in sync. And normally it's about 5 to 10, depending on the roadway. So like if you're going down Ala Moana Boulevard, there's 2 to 3 lanes. So what they would do is each girl would have their own lane. And then when you got down into Kalakaua, there was 5 lanes. So then they spread out evenly. And then between the attendants and our escorts was about 15 feet. And those were actually things that we got judged on. So a lot of the judging was for our leis, the way we rode, the way we presented ourselves. It was everything, actually. Anything and everything. So the judges would come down that morning and they would inspect our leis. We would, they would make sure that there's no wires poking because we don't want to hurt the Leo. And if something's bothering the Leo, you're not going to have a good ride. It's going to be paakiki, and you're going to have to just make sure you can malama yourself and malama your Leo. And then when we first started riding, we didn't get judged. The first 2 years, actually. So the 3rd year when we rode for Oahu, that's when they started to bring the judging back. And we were blessed that year. It was Oahu. We were able to represent our aina, where we come from. And we were able to place as unit and princess that year. And it's just overwhelming. Like for us, we ride because of the culture. We ride for our kupuna, our ohana. And if we receive an award at the end, then that's just a bonus for us. And that's one thing that I love about my unit. We ride because that's who we are as Kanaka, and we love our kupuna and our lahui.
And I just wanted to chime in real quick. What's really nice, so we've only rode for Kamehameha Day Parade. You know, we haven't ridden for Aloha Week or anything else as a unit, at least. But something that's really unique about Kamehameha Day Parade is because we start at the palace and at Kapi'olani Park. You know, this parade is for Kamehameha. So we pass the statue right in the very, very beginning of our route. And so we are taught to honor and to ho'ohanohano Kamehameha. And so as we pass him, we do a very small, very brief presentation there. You know, a kuno and some motions to him as well. And I think that's something that that really kind of sticks with
one
us.
of the most beautiful things. And then actually after we pass the statue, our wahine and our kane are not able to make any other motions after that. They are to nohonani and kuno and minoaka. Only the princess is able to vala'au and say aloha. There's no shakas though. No shakas. But that is one thing that I truly love, is that we're able to honor our ali'i as we make our way down the road.
You know, I'm gonna read a quick comment here. One, I'm liking, later on you guys can go back and check out some of the discussion on Facebook, but like Kaulana also mentioned that about riding before for Maui, and also being thankful for learning the history, because Kaulana's parents was also a part of Pāʻū riding. So I like hearing that there are multiple generations of passing this on. And then Angie made a comment about, or says, I used to push the pooper scooper wagon for my friend's Pāʻū unit. My son was a pooper scooper until the last year when he was blessed to ride and was for hilo. All of the female members of the unit were required to wrap and be wrapped so we would know what it felt like and how to help when needed.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, so when we say it's an ohana affair, it really is. Down to the pooper scoopers. Their job is extremely important.
Elia was our pooper scooper every year.
You know, when you ask ohana, like you said, yeah, you put out the kahea and your ohana, they go and answer whether they like or not.
Yeah.
They gotta say, yep, okay.
Okay, we'll be there. What time do you want us there? Yeah. So over the years, there's a lot of things that's behind Pāʻū that people don't realize. So we have Ali'i Sunday where the units go down and we come as a big hui, not just the Pāʻū units, but the civic clubs and the different societies, and we come together for Halepule in honor of Kamehameha. And there's also lei draping. So lei draping always happens on Friday. So normally the week of parade, we're making leis every day, and you really hope to be done with everything by Thursday at the latest, hopefully Wednesday. That way Friday you can go check into the hotel, get situated, and then meet your unit down at the statue. And every year it's so beautiful to see the ali'i draped in all this puamelia, all these different leis, all these poe that come from around, sometimes they come from outer state to ha'awi ho'okupu and share, and it's been a blessing every year for us. And every year we have something small, a ho'okupu to give. We've also been blessed. So when we rode our Kauai year, so the second year, we were blessed to be able to have a trolley. I always heard about how people had floats and all this stuff. And at the time, I didn't know much about floats. I just knew how to decorate here and there because people, you know, they put the kahea out. Hey, can you come kokua? We got to make this. And can you help do these bundles and whatever? So I knew how to do that part, but to coordinate it was something different. So we had trolley, but of course we had live musicians. We had our ohana join on that trolley. So we had our makuas out there. We had KOCC actually had some of their keiki that they kokua. They took them on the trolley and they joined us there. So for Kauai and Oahu, we had a trolley. And then for the 100th anniversary, when we rode for Maui, we had a float. So you'll see Auntie Twyla Mendez and her halo dancing. And then Wahine again playing on the beautiful float in pink.
Just more ono, yeah, when you can hear music. And I think it comforted us as well because we're on the Leo and we can hear the music behind and it's just lua ole, nothing like that feeling.
Yeah. And then of course we have our pooper scoopers on the bottom right. You know, if we don't have pooper scoopers, we cannot go down the road. Auntie Bev will not let us go down if we do not have our pooper scoopers. And they actually play a big role because if we don't have them, who's gonna pick up everything? And then we have to make sure we still malama our aina, and you know, we cannot leave anything behind. So they are a very, very big part of our ohana as well.
So we're just gonna zoom through this one real quick because we still have our brief demonstration that we want to do, but I think this would be a nice segue because our lei making, as Kaena mentioned, is the whole week leading up to parade. And yes, we do practice and we prep certain things ahead of time, depending on the island and the type of materials that we're using. And so we like to pick as much as we can, right? We try to pick and be resourceful, use what's around us as much as possible. And yes, we will purchase certain things. And we've tried different things. Some things work, some things maybe never work. Yeah. Some things are, you know, mainstays like la'i. You can never not use la'i, right? Yeah. So la'i from very beginning to the very end, every year we use la'i, of course. And then lots of other materials that we'll share in a bit. But again, our ohana there from
they're there early
maybe 5,
Monday.
6 p.m. till like 3 a.m. in the next morning, and you know, sleepless nights, but it's a good time to just fellowship and be together, talk, laugh, any kind. Yeah. This picture all the way on the right, it's kind of funny. We wanted to share this because it really is a real part. We do the swing test. Yeah, and you might hear this Anake, you're a lei maker. Many lei makers.
You
will shake, swing. Anything fell out? Oh, if it did, you might have to hana hole. Yeah, take out as much as you need to and hana hole. And so that's been a real part of our journey as well.
Yeah.
And so I think now we can shift over to behind us, where we'll just do a quick sample of a horse lei.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you guys moving, I'm gonna ask a question that just came. After you're making these beautiful, I'll stop this sharing. Oh, there you got it. I was wondering, after you make all the lei, like where are you storing it? Are you guys having to borrow somebody's reefer that's just for the leis, or how do you malama the leis?
So depending on the leis, we've done it to where the first couple of years actually we took it to Pali Safeway. So after our leis were done, we made contact with them. We've actually taken it to Kapolei Safeway because we always do our leis at Makakilo Elementary. And so we've been blessed with being able to have a place to take it to. One year we took it with us to the hotel. We had a reefer that we shared with another unit. So it just depends on the type of lei. Like when we did our roses, because roses, they're very delicate. Just like Bird of Paradise and all these other pua. And so we had to MacGyver sometimes, just to like make sure that we could malama our pua. So in the cafeteria, you would see containers and buckets and coolers full of either like ice or water, and then you would just see puas everywhere. So we're gonna do a quick demonstration today on lei for our leo. It's basically the same thing as a lei po'o vili, a lei vili. It's just bigger. So we have a lot of people use different things to make their bundles. And so we have these two different wires. I don't know if you can see them. So the blue one is actually electrical wire, mahalo Hawaiian tail. And then we have our regular floral wire. So these are two things that we use to bundle. We use it to wrap and tie. And then to actually tie our leis or to make them, we use wax strings. So they come in different colors. There's black, there's brown, and there's also clear. So today, normally you would use burlap, but today we're gonna use la'i, and it's the same thing, same concept. So what you would do is you would make your base, and what we do here is we actually tie wax string around it to bind it, to make it pa'a and solid. And so wax string is your best friend when it comes to horse leis. So what we do is we tie our string here to the beginning of our lei, where you wanna be able to start your lei actually. And sometimes you double knot, triple knot. So long you know it's pa'a, that's the main part. So we prepared some bundles. We love la'i because you use what you have. You don't have to go out and purchase and whatever. Use what you have because then you can save, and then you're also being able to connect more with your aina. So this is one style of a bundle. It's la'i. Basically, it's just 4 or 5 la'i bundled, flipped down back into, and then all you do is you wire it. So what we do is we like to start with la'i in the beginning. For us, we were taught that you have to bend the stem. That way it kind of sits up. So what you do is just like lei, you wrap around. So we go 1, 2, 3, and then we make a loop here to lock it in. And then we pull through. And then we make sure it's pa'a. And then we keep adding in. So some people, they like to create their designs prior. Some people, they like to use their imaginations as they go. It really just depends on what your preference may be. Just like any lei. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm gonna plan it out. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. And then sometimes you just pick all kinds of mea and you're like, okay, we're gonna go from here and we'll see how it comes out.
Another thing is when you're making your lei, it's wonderful to have a passer, a helper, someone who's going to passer your bundles because you will save so much time that way. And so what we did is we pre-laid out kind of the order of the different bundles and things, the different materials that we're using in the order in the lei, so that me as the passer can just go down the line, pass her the materials that she's going to use, and she can just put them right in.
So anytime you have the wires, you want to make sure that the wires aren't going down into the lei to the back part, because that's where the horse is going to be. So anytime there's wires, you always want to flip them up and in, just so that you can malama yourself and you can malama your leo.
So is the lei going to be flat on the back part so that it lays flat on the horse?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
And this is one style, right? As we said, so there are, you know, more poi poi type styles. Some just use single strands, right? And if you look into the older photos, like some of the photos that we had, you see that really in the 1800s, they just had like single strands, maile, yeah?
Or carnation.
Or carnation, yes. We can
I saw that picture. One of the pictures had carnation on the lei.
Yes. I think that was Lili Uokalani Kawananakoa, Princess Abigail's mom. If that's the photo that you're talking about. And so I asked Uncle Kimo about that because I said, you know, now our leis are so chunky and they're beautiful. I said, what point in history did it grow? Did the leis, the horse leis grow? And he said about the 1970s with one of his mentors, Nalani Sheldon, kind of influenced the horse leis and then they started to grow and get bigger.
So you can see here now, as we add into our lei, everybody adds differently. So some people, when they put in the bird of paradise, they actually remove, and that's what we've done before, is we remove the pua and we wire it and then we put it into the lei. And then some people, they just put the whole stock in, and sometimes it's nice that way. Just depends on what you want to see in your lei.
So is there one person that's kind of that creative that puts the leis together, or do all of you kind of make your own lei as the different parts of the Pāʻū unit?
So I've, for myself in our unit, I've had all of my riders make their own lei. If they didn't make their own lei, then somebody from their ohana made it for them. And for me, it was the mana'o was, you're taking that mana down with you on that road. And what better way than to have either your own mana in there or your ohana. Because a lot of times, some people don't realize how much you appreciate your lei when it's pau.
And makahana ka'ike too. Yeah, this was so brand new for us when we first started. Yes, we've made lei po'o, we've made lei vili, but to make a horse lei is on another level, right? And so from our very first year, we were blessed to learn.
Yeah,
when you're making your own lei, it's just, you learn so much more. Yeah.
And you find so much more appreciation in it.
Aye.
Nice, nice.
So just like any other lei, you have a pattern, if that's what you're going for in your design. And so now we're on the second part of the pattern. Second batch of the same pattern.
And you'll see, just like any lei, if you have, depending on your hands, the way you make your lei, it's either going to be really full, really spaced out, or really even. So that's one thing that I've learned over the years as I've made lei, that I've controlled the way that I hold my pua, or I hold basically any flower now when I make lei. Because like when I used to make lei hulu, if you don't move enough, it's gonna get really chunky right there, and then it's not gonna be nice.
Yeah.
So basically, this is what we do the whole way, and we add and we move down as far. So majority of the times, the leis are about 5 foot, about a 5 foot lei. And sometimes, depending on your horse, if your horse is bigger, then your horse is gonna be, and your lei is gonna be bigger. If your horse is a smaller horse, then you don't need that big of a lei. But 5 feet is normally the general size that they would use. Yeah. So we're gonna show you guys how to end it, just in case, you know, some poʻe, they want to learn how to make lei. Leo, if you have a Leo and you want to make a lei for them, go ahead, grab some lai. And sometimes, you know, I've seen people, they only use bundles of lai. And even just that is beautiful itself.
Yeah, and especially we have so many different colors too of lai.
Yeah, that is actually my favorite part, is the different colors.
Nice. I was also thinking, you know, of, you know, when you're like, I know this is specific for Leo, but I'm thinking, you know, that it's also good, like if you're having a luau or a paina, and, you know, instead of having to go and buy all the flowers and making table decorations, these would be beautiful to put on the tables or on the tents or things like that.
Yes, definitely. So when you end the lei, it's kind of, you're gonna go to do the same thing when you started it. So you're gonna go in the opposite direction. You're gonna huli your bundles to face the, so if we're going this way, we're gonna huli it and then place it in the opposite direction. So now it looks like it's a complete lei, as if you could start any side.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You go in and out. You wrap 3 times. Then you tie it, and then you just continue to do all the different sides. So sometimes I like to do my outsides first, and then put the middle part last, because you never know. Sometimes it's the easiest part to do, and sometimes it's the hardest part to do. Because you have to think, normally this lei would be about 5 feet, and it's heavy. So kind of just pick them up like this and just tie. And then you also want to make sure that there's no puka.
Yeah. Well, you gotta be ikaika too, because I see you pulling hard on with that string.
Yeah. You gotta have some strength in there. So normally you have somebody who will pass you your bundles, somebody who will hold for you, or you hold and then somebody that will tie for you. That way you're not, it's not just you putting everything into it. And then you can relax a little. And
there's a lot of comments on Facebook saying "Nani ho'i nui kahana." That's so cool. Shannon is saying that she's a Native American, and this is so amazing. I've learned so much. You ladies are absolutely beautiful, and your spirit is so alive. Thank you for sharing your culture.
Mahalo nui. So yep, and then all you do is you tie it off the same way you started it, and then you have a lei.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, Grant is also saying skills, strength, and beauty. No batteries required.
No batteries required. Batteries not included.
So, you know, as we're getting close to the end of our time together, I was wondering, you know, how if people wanna kokua, if they're interested in being an active part of Pāʻū riding, or they wanna just be a lima kokua and be able to help. How do they volunteer, or who do they contact?
So it just depends on who they know, I guess. So sometimes different units have different people that come out in kokua. A lot, everybody has their own way of how they malama their unit. Like for us, we use the cafeteria, and then we have all these people that come out. And normally I'm just like, if you want to come and you want to learn, helemai. So here's the end of our lei. So we have some, and then this is the back side. Just as we started it, we have la'i here and la'i there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go make some la'i bundles today.
There you go. Decorate your table runner or something.
Yeah. So, and then earlier, can you guys say something about, because I was asking you guys, but you know, there's also, we were talking about the Kamehameha Day commissioners, and that there are some puka on different islands. And I know specifically for Kauai, there's a kahea out for a commissioner. And so I don't know, do you guys have any mana'o on why someone should get involved and be volunteer to be a commissioner? And maybe, I don't know if you know the role of that person.
There's a lot of kuleana that comes with it. And I think if you are able to kokua and you feel that you can be there, and it's really different commissioners come from different islands and different hui. I think if you are able to do that, then kako'o to you. It's a lot of kuleana, but it's such a beautiful thing for you to be able to come back and kokua your community.
Cool. Yeah. And so do all the islands have Kamehameha Day parades where they do Pāʻū units?
So I know Oahu, Kauai, Maui, Hawaii, Molokai. I think that's all of them.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, Auntie Bev jumped on recently, and she's actually saying aloha, and she's putting her number out there too on Facebook. And yep. She said, you can call Auntie Beverly Lee at 392-7111 if anyone is interested. So there you go, everybody. You know, if you want to learn more, if you want to be a part of it, if you want to be a commissioner, or, you know, you want to just be a kako'o, then go call Auntie Bev, or, you know, you can reach out and put your information on our Facebook page, and you know, the girls will check it out and follow up. But yeah, maybe any closing mana'o before I bring up my closing slides.
Mahalo nui.
Yeah, mahalo nui. Mahalo nui to everybody who tuned in. Yes. Mahalo to everybody who's actually been a Pāʻū rider or has been a kokua to us. You know, we've been blessed. Every year we have about 100 people that come out every week to kokua, and it's the biggest blessing is when we're able to see them out on the road, and they can see where, like, they're like, hey, we made those bundles, or we helped make that lei, or we sold all those ali'i. So it's just the little things like that, you know, it's the biggest thing that we have the mahalo for.
Yeah, mahalo to those who practice Pāʻū riding.
Yeah.
Because people who practice Pāʻū riding, they keep it in their ohana, you know, they teach the next generation, and that's how we were blessed to learn. So yeah. Mahalo nui to all our kumu and our mentors. Yeah. Because without them, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, mahalo nui to Auntie Bev, because she's actually been the steerhead for a lot of us Pāʻū riders. At least for me, you know, I came in as a younger person, 21, didn't know what was going on, and here we are today where I'm able to kokua, and I'm now helping with the ho'olaulea part and everything else. So mahalo nui.
You guys still look 21.
Thank you.
especially I know Noi's birthday is coming up really soon.
It is.
21 again.
Yes, yes. And I'm gonna read this last comment too before I bring up my slides. Ekini says, "Mahalo nui loa, Kaʻenama, for sharing the art of Pāʻū writing, the traditions, and the perpetual legacy. The Hawaii Pāʻū writers have written in 4 recent Rose Bowl parades,
Yes.
the All Western Days Parade in Texas, twice in Seattle at the Torchlight Parade, and the Oregon Rose Festival.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's nice about Pāʻū is it's so unique to us. And when we get to share it, even in the continent, right? Continental United States, beyond, overseas
Beyond
and whatnot.
Oahu, beyond Hawaii.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mahalo for sharing that.
Mahalo, Ekini.
Yeah. So there's some great stuff. So you guys got to go check it out on the Facebook page. And yeah, thank you again. Always so happy to have Ohana Keiki, like both of you, on Lei Ānuenue with us and sharing your mo'olelo. And yeah, we want to ask all of you, our Lei Ānuenue participants, to please kokua. Let us know what you thought about today's episode. And if you go to our kanaeokana.net/survey, let us know what you thought. If this brought value into your day, if you learned a little bit more about this part of our history. And if you have any ideas on other topics you would like us to bring forward here on Lei Ānuenue, let me know, because I do go and check those out. And you can also stay connected with us by sharing your email. That's optional. But some of you, if you want to be on the email list, I can add you there as well. But we love hearing any feedback on how we can make it better. As always, if you go to our schedule at kanaeokana.net/lei, you can find out what's coming up. And so tomorrow, we're really excited because one of Kaena and Kaʻanoʻi's friend, Kalani, will be talking about his amazing summer program that's coming up. And it's open for keiki out there that are looking for good cultural programming. He has so much to share. I've been watching some of his videos and what he has planned. And he has this little eke, not the Pāʻū writing eke kit, but it's a kit of all kinds of supplies and all of that. So there's so many surprises. So I want to invite you all to come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Just in my little conversation I had, I know we're going to have fun tomorrow as well. And then on Aikole with Ekela Kaniaupi Crozier, our friends, and both Noi and Kaena are good friends with them, the Keauho. They're going to be talking story with our friend and our tita and our kumu, Ekela Kaniaupi Crozier. So many good things happening. So go check out the schedule at kanaeokana.net/lei, and you can find out more there. As always, mahalo nui loa for making the time and choosing to spend your morning with us on Lei Ānuenue. And some of you may be watching the recording later on. Stay connected with us, both Kanaeokana as well as Hawaii Nui Akea on our Facebook and Instagram pages. And that's where you can always find out what's coming up, what programs are coming up, and we're starting to also add more of the larger programming from other partners and organizations onto our schedule. So following us on Facebook and Instagram is the way to really stay connected, and also go watch the other recordings, because we have all the past recordings listed there too. So mahalo and aloha.